wondered how some people transition to a completely different career after years of success in one field? And why? If so, stay with us on the Just Be Better podcast, where we explore the endless possibilities of professional growth, learning, and excellence. Today we have Lance Horsman, a leader with 20 years of successful career, who recently decided to follow his passion for writing. I'm very thrilled to have you here, Lance. Could we start by you giving a brief overview of your career so far to our listeners?
Thanks, Vicky. Thanks for having me on board. Really excited to be here today. So over 20 odd years in business. Started out in manufacturing and got a Bachelor of Arts degree, then got a Master's degree in business leadership, and grew from quality manager to factory manager to MD. From MD became international director across a number of different industries, GM of a large national concern in South Africa, and very rewarding. I was able to positively affect a lot of lives, which I think is something I really enjoyed, but at the cost of my own, I think. Let me say that much. So, that pretty much the bio is lots of fantastic work around the world, lots of different places. What kept me going through that process is I've had a lifelong fascination with martial arts. I've got over 30 years worth of training, and I think that's informed a lot of my processes and my decision making in life.
And when you say at the cost of your own, what do you mean?
I think that, different circumstances we put ourselves in demand different things of us. So when I was in leadership, certainly in the industries that I was in, they were very hard. They were very time consuming. I had to juggle the family balls. I'm a single dad. I had to look after my child. You have to make sacrifices. And sometimes, especially, South Africa's a very interesting country. We've got massive amounts of poverty. And so in order to generate profit within our industries, I'd say you sometimes have to make some tough decisions. And certainly the kind of individual I was, I found that sometimes those tough decisions, they took a toll on who I wanted to be. And eventually I think the workload, at one stage I was running a business in South Africa. I'd set up a branch in Australia, one in Singapore and one in Mauritius, and in running projects out of Europe. And then, being a dad, the martial arts kind of kept me sane, but still running that dojo. Sometimes it just gets a bit much. And then what do you give way? I mean, this is for any leader. What do you give way? What do you give off? And I found a discipline within me. And because I'm quite a disciplined guy, I never thought I was, because I always used to eat especially too much pasta, right? Pasta and chocolate, those are my sins. And it was my discipline, which I learned in the dojo, is what do I say no to? And that is a fantastic thing. And so as I began to say no to things, I find it became very easy to be disciplined and to fit all the stuff in. But then, of course, here comes the cost. What are you saying no to? What if you're saying no to something in you that you shouldn't be saying no to? I was saying no to my own creativity. I always was this creative kid. I could read before I even went to school. I was the kind of kid who'd read out my local libraries. I'm like 50, just about 50 now. So we didn't have the internet back then. It was local libraries. And so I read them out. And I love reading. I'm a voracious reader. I read everything from self-help books to economics to history to fantasy, which I write now. So in order for me to be that successful guy that I was in corporate industry, I had to say no to that creative side of me. So there was a watershed moment. There's a couple of watershed moments. And if the one thing I could encourage anyone who's listening to this is, listen to your watershed moments. It's a tragedy when the universe comes, because, sometimes it whispers to you, but sometimes it tells you with blaring horns and a white Ghostbuster wagon screaming down the road with alarms. It's saying, hey, look at me, look at me. And I had a couple of those. And the one happened about 3-4 years ago. I went on a holiday down to Cape Town, lovely part of the country. Most people in the world know about Cape Town. It's gorgeous. Mountains, seaside, it's wonderful. So I went down, I took my daughter and a friend of hers, and I said, okay, I'm going to relax, but what am I going to do? And so I thought, you know what? I haven't written for a little while. Let me do some writing. And so while I was doing that, I got this course, this online, listen to the guys and they give you a course and they give you little exercises to do. And they're saying, do this. And I go, yeah, but I know that already. And then I clicked onto the next thing and it said, if you write, you should be doing this. And I'm going, but I know that already. And this was a hobby of mine. Writing was a hobby of mine that I literally haven't touched on for almost 25 years at this point.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I wrote my first book at the age of 19. So I realized that these guys were experts in the writing field, but I knew what they were telling me. I said, I can do this. I said, hell, I'm going to write a book. And so I had an idea then and there, and I started writing the book. Then what happened, the next watershed moment was, well, there were two. The one was my daughter got very ill, mentally ill, and she was in and out of institutions. It was going to be killing herself. It was incredibly traumatic, and it took immense amount on my ex-wife, because we'd been divorced for some time. So it took immense amount of work from both of us to literally get my daughter through this 2-3 year period where we had to deal with her mental illness. And it was tough, because some nights you would almost not sleeping for weeks on end, because I don't know if I go to sleep, if I'm going to wake up and my daughter's going to be alive in the morning. I remember a grandmaster of mine who I trained with in Japan. He said to me that when you're under pressure, you run to where your heart lies. And so I was in this deep pit, because it was a very hard place to be. I was in a very tough, demanding job that required me to be, well, high pressure, nonstop, just engaged, conference calls 6 to 10 hours a day, just nonstop. It was absolutely crazy. In South Africa, we had just come through this crazy time. We'd come through COVID. The area where I had, KZN, we had riots that thousands of people got killed. We had neighborhood watches, armed neighborhood watch, just, looking after the areas. And then we had flooding. And it was all of this. My daughter was in this crazy funk, in and out of psychiatric hospitals. And we were trying to find the right help for her. So what do? I certainly wasn't finding solace in work. I couldn't find solace in family, because my family was sick. So I started writing again. And I threw myself into this book. And I was like, oh, wow. It was so cathartic. It was such a healing process in it. And it's not even a book about mental health. But it is a book that has got found family. I mean, it's got action, and it's got wizards and all sorts of crazy things. But the writing process was so cathartic to me. And that allowed me, it gave me some healing, and it brought back all of that creative joy. And I said, that's it, I'm done. I'm done with this corporate gig. I'm done now. I just want to write, because if it can heal me like this, people can read my stories and I can get them to smile, and maybe they'll even learn something in the process. Well, then happy days. That's what I want to do. And that was the second big watershed moment.
And is that when you officially transitioned from corporate career and completely quit that, or are you still in the corporate world?
I was still in the corporate and writing on the side, but that was the moment that I decided, okay, I'm going to do this. There was one other moment that happened, because I was going to just keep on writing on the side and doing it. And I had an incredible friend. He lived in Belgium, and he used to run a large energy company for Western Europe. I think it was Engie, you would ENGIE. He used to run that, and an amazing human being. I used to train with him. That's how we met each other. And every time I would come over to Belgium, I go over once a year. Every time I went over, and we'd just go out and have a great time. And I met his family, and they were incredible, his wife and his kids. And he was one of those special human beings. And he got home from work one day, and he sat at the dinner table, and he just collapsed, boom. And the next day they declared him brain dead, just out the blue. And I was like, what the hell? Jesus. He's doing what I was doing. He was working in corporate. He's a successful guy. Great family, great life, healthy, fit, strong, everything. And I'm going, I don't want to be like that. It was such a stark reminder to me, and like I said, the universe was telling me, right? How many times are you going to get told before you listen? And so I was like, okay, I don't know if this thing's going to work or not. I'm scared whether it is or isn't going to work. I don't want to have to leave. I've got a great house. I live in a conservancy. I'm surrounded by trees and nature. But I'm going to go for this anyway. And so that was it. So then I left my corporate gig. I said goodbye to the guys. I had some money saved. And that was when I officially said, okay, I'm done. I'm going to become an indie author. And so that's what I've done.
Your story sounds like at one point in life, all of the hardships just fell almost all at once. So very impressive for you to getting up and actually not giving up and going forward.
Thank you, Vicky.
I worked with quite a lot of people myself who have been in corporate world, and a lot of people, like yourself including, they realize that how vulnerable people are and how fragile our life is a lot of the time, and it's too late already. I know multiple founders who invest their heart and soul and life into the businesses, uh, only to work themselves into a full-on breakdown, and then both mental and physical end up in a hospital trying to sort themselves out and not being able to work again for 2-3 years. So I wish people would be able to pick up on these signs that your body and your life around you tells you a little bit earlier, probably. But it's still good when you manage to stand up and bounce back.
I remember obviously I used to read, I still do occasionally, but a lot of business books. And the one, I forget who said it, I think he might have been one of the very famous CEOs of Coca-Cola, when he talked around how you juggle different balls, rubber balls and glass balls, and your family is a glass ball. And I mean, I'd already dropped that, hence the divorce, right? I'd already dropped that many, many, many years ago. And I realized that I dropped the biggest ball out of all, which is myself. You know, I had this, I wouldn't say, well, actually, I could probably say calling. And so I've always known, actually, that I'd wanted to write. I'd known from a young age. But it was something that I never pursued because I had to look after family. I had to pay the bills. I had to be the provider. I had to do all of these things. And I'd had a picture of success, of what success was, which I'd inherited, from like what I was told as a kid. You've got to drive a particular car, you've got to have a particular kind of house, you have to have a particular image in society, all of these things. And I actually hit those, had a cool car, got a nice house, whatever, had these things. And I'm going, okay, so why am I still looking? The answer wasn't there. And so I always tell people when they ask me how it's going, I say, "Well, a bad day writing is better than a good day in the office."
I think to add on that as well, writing, to be honest, probably most of the creative industry still have a name. I was like, oh, you're going to be, that's basically unemployed. You're not going to earn any money. You're not going to survive of that. So find a real job. And I think a lot of us heard that when we were growing up, that we need to go into business, learn how to use laptop, learn how to use Excel, and be proficient in that.
100%. There actually was a process, because one of the things I learned in my martial art, which was, if I mention it often, it's because it was so foundational in my growth as a human being. And there's a concept called shugyo, which means, roughly, it translates to life is training. So life, you must always be training to improve yourself. It goes like this, it never stops. You can pause, obviously, because we need to rest sometimes, but it must never stop. So shugyo is around this continual life growth. So I do believe that life is a process of growth. And I definitely got taught the same things, like what you're saying. Go and learn these practical skills. Go and do it. Make sure you can pay all the bills. You can be this person. And like I said, as I achieved those, I felt there was it didn't satisfy. And so now, now I'm a lot happier.
That's really good to hear. When you think, Lance, about your personal growth, as you just said, if you remember yourself, I don't know, 15 years ago, what personal growth looked to you then versus what it looks like now, was there a big transition?
Yes, 100%. 15 years ago, I was, well, it's striving to make money, maybe get qualifications, make a name for myself. So I would say 15 years ago, it's more about building something. And also, I would suggest more ego driven, more about me. And for sure, writing a book is around me and making money for me. But it's also a part of me giving back to other people so they can read, they can be part of a larger community. My measures for success have changed, Vicky, more than anything else. So, successful, like I said, successful before was having a particular car, having a particular social standing, these kind of things. And now, I don't care. I don't care about that. Now it's actually, there's a certain satisfaction in having the lifestyle that I have and sharing it with the people I love. That's what it's about. And so success has changed, definitely, as well as the transformational goals. I found myself doing a lot more introspection. I always did some, for sure. I think that's, you can't get through life without doing any, really. And I find myself doing a lot more now. And so how I take on life has changed as well.
If you allow me, would like to bring you back a little bit towards your early career. Your career spanned several industries from manufacturing to fintech. How did you navigate these transitions and what motivated you to explore such diverse fields being at that time in your life?
I got bored. No, so I can't sit still. I'm not one of those guys. I can't do it. So although and I didn't start out that way. I was quite a sickly kid, so I didn't get to do much. And as I got older, I was like, no hell, I can't be this sickly kid. I can't be this guy that sits around. And it taught me the gift. It gave me the gift of reading and massive intellectual inquisitiveness. And so, as I started to do that, I said, yeah, but there can be better ways. And so, I learned how to exercise better. I learned how to look after my body. I got involved in all sorts of different things. What I realized was that I absolutely love working. I have an incredible capacity to work and to keep busy. And the challenge for me was always, how do I balance that? How do I keep busy? How do I keep active, but in ways that are healthy? I worked in manufacturing industry. As I said, I started out as a quality manager and I ended up becoming MD. And then I moved across to construction industry. And what allows me to do that? Like, I honestly think, especially at a high level, people often say, oh, we want an MD who's got all this years of experience in the industry. And I'm going, no, you guys don't know what you're talking about. You literally you're missing the boat, because every industry only has a couple of principles. There's only a handful of principles which underpin every industry. And then outside of that, if you've got a handle on what those principles are, then the rest is, how do you look after your people? And people are people. So, if you've figured out a way to care for your people, to motivate them, to keep them running in the right ways, and then you can push them down the right principles in that industry. Obviously, there's always work involved, but it's it's like picking up a 500-kilogram weight. It's simple, but not easy. And I think leadership is the same way. I've learned that over the years. It's simple, but not always easy. So yeah, that's kind of my thought process. So I've changed all those industries because I had a certain amount of success in one. I'm going, now I want something new. What new concepts can I wrap my head around? And so I jump across to the next one.
If you were to speak with a young leader who's just who's about to become a manager, who's going to lead people, what advice would you give to them?
There's millions of books out there. I think I would tell them, read. Readers are leaders. I think that's the first thing. But if you had to take like one thing, just one thing, it's be humble. Listen to your people. Invariably when something's wrong, they know, but they don't want to tell you because you're not being humble. So be humble and like listen to your people. I think that's the one simple thing.
I really love this. I think a lot of startups nowadays miss this point when they get on that almost power trip or ego trip. When they raise the money, they think they're going to be a next unicorn, and then everything becomes about the money and the growth of the business, and the people are last.
Well, for sure, the life of it changes, and people become they become commoditized. So and then people just become like more pieces on a board. They shuffle in and they shuffle out, and it's such an incredible difficult thing then to maintain a consistent RP, within the organization, because you've got people shuffling through. And I get it also, because I've started up businesses. So it's your passion, it's your baby, and you want this thing to succeed at all costs. You need it to succeed at all costs, maybe because your house is on the line and your friend's house is on the line, and you've got a whole pile of investors poured money into this thing, and you're going to sit there in front of them, and you can't let them down. But here's the thing: none of your staff have done that. They haven't gone and leveraged other investment and what have you. So their stake in the game is slightly different to what yours would be. And so you can't always expect them to have the same, if it's a startup, you're going to work 20 hours a day. I had a factory that ran 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It never stopped. It was a manufacturing concern. So there for years, I just didn't, I hardly, I hardly slept, right? I couldn't ask that of my staff because they didn't have a share. When that made money, they didn't get as much of that as what I got. They didn't get the equity that what I had. Okay, granted, yes, I had to raise the money, I did the business, all that. But, also a lot of them didn't have the skill set. Some of these guys were simply machine minders. And so they would bring in a machine minding mindset into the business and they would then get a machine minding salary. And obviously, yes, we all want employee engagement in our business. If we have employees who are passengers, the business will sink. We need employee engagement. But there's also, we can't expect an employee to have the same engagement as me unless he's got the same equity as me. So it's always a tough line to walk. And it's very, very easy for startup owners to lose sight of the fact that, they go, oh, it's all our business. They go, no, it's not all our business, pal. They're not getting paid the same as you, I guarantee it. I'd say look after your people for sure if you're in a startup.
It's very funny because I had this discussion yesterday with one of my clients about equity and the fact that you cannot expect someone to have that much dedication as you have because they're going to have 0.01% of equity that you're offering and you have 99% of it. So the stakes are very different on this.
Oh, 100%. 100%, yeah.
One thing that you mentioned at the very beginning, and it's very clear through all of your stories and all of your answers, that you're saying the discipline and the importance of discipline in your life. With 30 years of martial arts training, how has this discipline influenced other areas of your life, and how do you actually implement that into your work life, not only in the training?
It's quite funny. I always thought I was an ill-disciplined guy because, I'd see these guys like, what's his name? David Goggins. What's it? The super, and like Jocko Willink and all of these guys who write these books. I'm going, no, they've got discipline. Me, yeah, okay, sure. I train 5 times a week. Okay, I decided that sugar's not good for me. I'll cut that out. Oh, then I'll do the same with milk. I'll just cut that out. And then people turn around and go like, wow, you like training 5 days a week. You cut out all these bad foods. You make every meeting at work. You never miss these things. You're quite a disciplined guy. And then, it's weekend, you shut down, you say, don't phone me. And then what happens is I've had other people come in and ask me to speak to their staff around discipline because they hold me up as someone who's, this is a virtue of mine. Turns out I have, I have it, but I never thought I did. And, I'm a very simple guy and I like one-liners. And so the one-liner for me is, what do you say no to? That's what discipline boils down to. What do you say no to? Because we all know what we want to say yes to, right? We want to say, well, actually, sorry. We don't all know what we want to say yes to, which is half the problem. So we say yes to everything. If you want your relationship to work, you've got to say yes to your partner. You can't say yes to every person that comes along, right? It's not going to work. If you want your career to work, you've got to say yes to things in career, and you have to say no to everything else that excludes that. One of the surest recipes to land discipline, I certainly found in my life, is saying no to the right things. Very simple. What are we saying no to? And so I learned that in martial arts because I was quite good, but then I saw there were and I had certain techniques that I'd used in life to always like be better than people I was training against. Right? I was always faster and more ferocious. And so my nickname they gave me was Ozaru, which means the great ape. Even though I'm not a big guy, but I was quite ferocious on the mat. But then what do you do when you're meeting guys who are just as fast and just as ferocious as you? How do you beat them? And they've been training just as long, and maybe they've had better opponents. Now I had to increase my skill. And so I had to start saying no to other things in my life. I had to start be eating better so I could have the physical conditioning. I had to say no to other things which would normally be entertaining for me so that I could focus this extra time into the training. The things that I said no to allowed me to say yes to the right things. And then I took that into other areas of my life, like eating. And I'm going to, sorry, I'm not like one of those guys who now, becomes a vegan. That's all they talk about, because I'm not a vegan. I'm actually a carnivore. And it was a massive change. I only eat meat, which incidentally in South Africa is very easy because we have the great meat and it's really cheap. But that took a lot of discipline, especially because I'm a pasta and chocolate. Well, sorry, I was a pasta and chocolate guy. So saying no to the right things allowed me to say yes to the right things. And it's just this revolutionized my health and my fitness. So yeah, discipline very much. It's what are you saying no to? And think about it: relationships, work, fitness, health, food. What are you saying no to?
And as you very nicely put, a lot of people, they don't know what they want to say yes to. So it's becoming more difficult to say no to things as well, because they say yes to everything. So for someone struggling with self-discipline and trying to understand what they should say no to and how they should work their way around no and yes, what are some practical steps that you think they could take to develop that skill?
Figuring out what you want in life is actually a very, very difficult thing. I mean, it sounds like it should be easy because we all know what we want. But the reality is that most of us want what our parents wanted for us, or most of us want what our friend group thinks are cool, you know. And I've lived through this, so you know we grow up with a lens of what's the right thing to have. And the absolute perfect example of this is Steve Jobs. On his deathbed, he was like, "Hey guys, spend more time with your family. I wanted this career. I wanted this business. I wanted all of this absolutely incredible stuff." And don't get me wrong. I mean, Apple, right? Awesome. So amazing stuff. And it's all great to want. But at the end of it, he's saying, hey, I wish I spent more time, you know, with my family and kids. Figuring out what you want, I would say this: write something down, but understand it's a journey. And when you do write it down, it's worthwhile asking yourself, why do I want it? Why do I want it? What does this give me? Why do I want it? You know, like so many guys, I mentor young guys often, and one of the first things, certainly in South Africa, it's probably a worldwide phenomenon. They all want a cool car. You know, the young guys, they want a flash car, and they've got maybe their first job in management, and they're making some good money, and they all want a flash car, and I go, wow. And it's because, well, you know, I want to show people that have made it. I said, okay, so your success is about showing other people what you're about. And it's okay. There's nothing wrong with wanting the flash car either, right? Absolutely nothing wrong with wanting. I know I did, you know. Um, but I think more importantly is write down what you want, and next to that, write down why you want it, and then revisit that, because your goals will change over time. I know it's very simple, but that's a very, very practical methodology.
I think simple things are normally, they look from a side, it should be the easiest one, but they're normally the hardest one, because you have to simplify your mind and exclude all of the outside noise. Because I think nowadays you will see a lot of, especially younger people, who want this lavish life of flying helicopters. Flashy cars is not no longer the main goal. Now they want helicopters, they want planes, they want no work and always traveling. But I think social media influenced that a lot. So trying to take yourself outside of that and realize what's actually within yourself is really hard. I definitely don't envy young people who have to go through everything, because growing up without internet and social media, you already struggle with that. And now when you're growing up with that, I can just imagine how significant of a challenge that's going to be.
It's absolutely huge. I've just been working with a young guy, friend of the family. He's 18, 19 years old, and just kind of working with him to adjust his rudder, because like you say, so growing up we never had that. So we looked at the people around us, and I was quite fortunate. Some people just have a great dad, but I had two. So my father and my stepfather, who's now passed on, but my father's still alive. But they were incredible men in their own right. They both had their faults, but I was so fortunate that they both cared for me greatly, and were able to pass on incredible life teachings to me. But the problem is, I think nowadays is like this young guy. They've got social media ever present all the time. You know, they're sitting in your room. Your bedroom's a safe space. So normally, if you're a child and you have a conversation in your bedroom, like a parents in the bedroom or loved ones in the bedroom, maybe your girlfriend, whatever it might be. Okay, this is someone you care about. It's a safe space. So this conversation won't be held. It could be the exact same conversation, but if you have that exact same conversation out in the street or at a mall, at a mental level, they're going to afford it a slightly different value, because the one is just in a public space, in a public forum, and the other one is in your intimate sanctuary. So which one would have more important? Obviously, the one in your intimate sanctuary. But now, when you're sitting on your phone in your bed and you're looking at this and you're scrolling, okay, the advice that's coming through from there, the things that you're seeing, are happening in your safe place. This is taking the place of bona fide life advice. And so one of the hardest things I've had to do with like younger guys is, how do we undo that mindset first? It's like, hey guys, classic answer, listen, I'm sorry, but this is bullshit. This is not going to land for you. This is not going to land. I don't know a single person who it's landed for. And you know what? I promise you it hasn't landed for the guy who's selling it to you on Instagram either. So first it's an undoing. And sometimes the guys, they bump their heads because they don't want to undo it, because they all like the idea. I mean, everyone likes the idea of, oh, I'll do a couple of videos, I'll get really wealthy. But anyone who's been in that a little bit knows it doesn't work like that.
You came from 20 years of incredible career in business, now transitioned to author. Obviously, it comes with certain challenges as well. So what would you say were some of the biggest challenges you faced when transitioning from that business mindset and business life to writing? And how did you overcome them?
Okay. So I absolutely love writing, and I've always been reasonably open to feedback. As a writer, I think the two biggest challenges that I faced is, number one, the feedback comes in hard and fast. I haven't had a lot of it, but sometimes you'll get negative criticism. They're allowed that. When I was in business and the negative criticism comes in, I just shut you down hard. There's a line and you don't cross the line, you must go. Easy. I can't do that as a writer. Everyone's allowed their own opinion, and they're allowed to not like my work. So that's been very, very hard. And it's opened up. Now I've learned to take better feedback from everyone. And actually, I'm a better writer and a human being because of it. I've got a beta team of readers who I send my work out. In fact, I've got a book out with them at the moment. They're encouraged to be 100% brutally honest. I said, just tell it to me straight, because life does that, right? Life tells it to you straight. And so I think that was one big change, is to normally when I would hear feedback which I didn't enjoy, I would put it aside and I'd try to find a way around it. Now I've got to listen to that feedback and I have to take it solidly on the chin, because only one person's writing, and that's me. So it's around, I've developed I wouldn't say thicker skin. I've developed a much more accepting and understanding approach to feedback, which is a big internal change. And so I'm quite pleased about that change. The other one, which I'm still working through actually, is that I have to spend a lot of time on social media. I'm on Threads, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I'm going, I hate this shit.
I feel you so much. I saw you. I saw you followed my Instagram account as well, and I had exactly the same, because I wanted to start podcast for quite a few years. I was like, okay, I don't know where to start, so I reached out to a couple of people who have been in podcast industry for quite a while, and everyone was like, start social media. And I started that, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going insane now. Like trying to every single day I wake up and I was like, I don't know what to film. Like I need to think of something. Like what do I do? What do I say in that camera? But I grew a completely new appreciation to all of the influencers, all of the people who constantly have the camera in their face. Because there are days when you're like, I just don't want to say anything, and the next thing you know is like, you have to. There's no chance. You have to. So I really feel you with that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Like I've got a newsletter that goes out every week, and I love to write. I really do. And also, I mean, I love to share things with people. I mean, I've been teaching people for probably 25 years now in martial arts. So I've helped guys. Like my dojo is not just about how do you learn to punch and kick. It's a place where you come to learn to grow, and I've helped kids get through their final year in high school, from that to just girls getting self-confidence, people losing weight, to some people say, hey, now I've got some life direction. And so I absolutely love that. And so I love sharing that, like in my newsletter. But writing that newsletter every week is one of the hardest things to do. It's one of the hardest things to do.
One of the things that I always fear about going into some of the passions and making money out of it is the fact that you're going to look at that as a chore rather than an exciting thing to do. But I think without making a step, you wouldn't know.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Yeah, we wouldn't never know. We wouldn't ever know unless we get into it. So, yeah.
So what future holds for you then, Lance? Where do you see yourself as an author, or other areas of your life? What's next?
As an author, what I'm busy doing now, I'm in the process of building up my backlist. So I've got 2 books and a novella published. The third book is currently with my beta team, as I've mentioned. And then I've got another 2 that I'm busy working on at the moment. One, a continuation of the series, and another one, something new and slightly different, which I'm about 13,000 words in, which is right in the beginning. And I feel like it's the best thing I've ever written. So it's a case of building up the backlist, because the backlist is obviously, the more books you have out there, I earn while we're speaking now, I'm earning money. That's the beautiful thing about writing. The books are out on Amazon. When I go to sleep at night, I wake up in the morning, I've earned money. So it's building the backlist. That's important to me as an author. As an aside, some guys have asked me to help them with, potentially, we're busy negotiating at the moment, to help them build an efficiency model so that they can look at gauging business efficiencies, a tool for gauging business efficiencies. So we're going to meet in a couple of weeks' time, and that might be quite fun. I think I might give them a day a week or something like that every now and again. We'll see. But ultimately, the long-term future would be continued writing. It's just to continue doing the writing and hopefully attend some cons overseas, like Comic Con and these big like Dragon Con and these kind of things. So I can actually interact with people. I've got super fans now. It's crazy. I've got guys who contact me out of the UK and they WhatsApp me, and incredible human beings. And they just go, wow, I love this about your work. And it's the most satisfying thing. I never want that to stop. So that's certainly the direction for me.
What is the genre of your books?
So I've got the 2 books. It's called the Rules of Magic series. And then I've written a small novella that's sci-fi, like a detective noir sci-fi. So yeah, I'm a fantasy novelist.
That sounds right up my valley. So talking about your books, talking about your career, what legacy do you hope to leave behind you, Lance? How do you want to be remembered by future generations?
+1. It's easy for me. I know, because I tell people all the time, when I die, when I die, what I hope is they put a gravestone in the ground, and on that gravestone they just put simply +1. This guy added to the world. It's that easy. So I think that I can add to the world by, I've made mistakes and I've led quite a full life. I mean, I've traveled all over and worked across different industries. I've done some really, really highbrow executive level things, and I've done some really lowbrow, not executive level things. And, I've anywhere from making decisions in a boardroom to standing and facing off a whole group of strikers by myself. It's, so my life has run the gamut across, and out of all of that, if I can help someone today have a better life, make better decisions, improve the quality of their life, I'm going, oh, boom, job done. So my legacy ideally would be a range of books that people would want to keep on reading. Hopefully things that can, expose people to new thoughts and new ideas that improve their life. That's, for me, that's a great legacy. I've made the world a better place.
I think even in this podcast, you shared so many good thoughts that is definitely going to improve and give inspiration to at least some people. Like, I'm very certain about that.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. That makes me very, that makes me very happy. I'd love to, that's an absolute win. Thank you.
And then finally, what parting advice would you give to our listeners who are on their journey of chasing dreams and building that self-discipline and learning themselves and learning how to say no?
One parting piece of advice is, and this is going to sound trite, but don't stop. Never stop. We all have our own way. We all have our own way of pursuing our dream. Some guys go hell for leather, and they reach it quickly. Other people do everything. Some people drip feed over years. So the exact mechanism varies from person to person. But the one thing that I will tell you is it's okay to pause. It really is. But it's not okay to stop. Do not stop, because the moment you stop, it's gone. The dream's not there anymore. And if you take it up, the dream may change. But it's okay to pause, rest, catch your breath, say, okay, I'm going to do this for a little while I can land this for sure. But do not stop. You just cannot stop. Some days you get up tired and say, okay, I'm tired. I'm just doing this just for today. And then tomorrow you wake up the next day and say, you know what? I'm doing this just for today. But do not stop. Just don't ever stop.
I really, really love this advice. And to be honest, it's definitely something that I feel like I needed to hear today.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. No, Vicky, I'm glad I could help. Thank you.
So, how our listeners can connect with you, Lance? I will share everything in the description below. Do you prefer being contacted on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, email?
So probably email. I think you've got my email.
Mhm.
Email, but look, they can use any of the things. I mean, they can DM me on Facebook. If they message me on Instagram, I get them, but I'm a bit slow on Instagram, to be honest. I'm quicker, and I think this is because of my corporate background. Every day I get up, and the first thing I do is I check my email. Well, after I've done my stuff, I go straight. I check my email because I've done it for 20 odd years, right? So my emails will definitely get responded to quicker. I will respond to Facebook and Instagram over time.
And where people can find your books to buy?
They're on Amazon at the moment. Lance Horsman, the first one's called Bad Medicine or Rules of Magic series. But if you Google me, if you go on Amazon and search for Lance Horsman, it's on Amazon.com, the UK, all the different Amazon sites. So I know I've had purchases in the Netherlands. I've had purchases out of Belgium. Yeah, Lithuania, you could probably get it too.
Perfect. I'll add all of the links to Amazon and everything in the description below so people can actually have a look at your books and contact you if they want to contact. Thank you so much, Lance, for being with us today. It was an absolute pleasure. And I really hope to have you again at some point soon. Hopefully, or maybe when you launch your efficiency product.
Yeah, for sure. So, Vicky, happy. Let's keep in touch. It was an absolute blast. I love being on here today. It was an absolutely wonderful experience, and it just made me really good. Hopefully, we can improve some people's days.
Like and subscribe.